All right.
So by now, you've probably seen a dozen of these AI bubble videos.
How
We're
NVIDIA and
aware.
OpenAI fuel the AI money machine.
I believe the AI industry is in a very big bubble.
We are in an AI bubble.
Is it a bubble?
But what they've
Bubble,
all missed is
bubble.
what's truly behind it all.
Money.
And I don't blame them, because the bubble is confusing as it is, and that's all.
Money.
And I don't blame them.
Morgan Stanley analysts track the billions going round and round the AI data center rollout. Without better disclosures, investors can't weigh the risks and returns. Investors are getting cold feet. That is beautiful. That is incestuous.
Because the bubble is confusing as it is.
Ay, chucha.
And I don't blame them, because the bubble is...
AI is AI is an obvious bubble from a financial perspective. It's just a bunch of IOUs for trillions. That's the thing, IOUs. So there's no actual money, and the money isn't there, and it never will be. As for production tool, 95% of companies who tried that AI tool found it to be a complete waste of time. It's a narrow market. Oh, this one's pretty cool too. But that's the thing. There's no money. There's no money that's moved. It's just IOUs. I will do this. I will pay you in the future for this. I will pay you if people don't buy your service. I will buy, I don't remember, I think 25%. Is disgusting. And this raises everybody's valuation. Just do a quick pit stop. Oracle. I don't remember what I saw. Oh, this is not what I saw. Deal to close next month. So TikTok signs deal to give US operations to Oracle-led investor group. So the deal most likely is going to finish closing up next month. Yeah, so the valuation raised, but I think there was a drop this week. So exactly. I don't remember what happened, but here there was a little news that made it drop a little bit out here. And now it's probably going to raise because of the TikTok deal. I was on TikTok and I saw a couple of people saying, you know, it was bought, it was done. It's not done. From my understanding is that once there's a takeover, you're going to have to download a different app. But don't quote me on that, please.
As confusing as it is, and that's all by design. While this tech company funds this, and in this one back around in a loop, Wall Street has been bankrolling the entire AI infrastructure boom using the very same tactics that crashed housing in 2008. Only this time, I don't think it's a bubble. It's far worse. It's a $1.8 trillion black hole where money goes in and it never comes back out. Just like before, it will only be obvious once it's too late. But if you think I'm just fear-mongering, Michael Berry, who predicted 2008, is already making this.
But there's another thing where he predicted a whole bunch of crashes that haven't happened yet, but he's very good, so.
Same bet. Look, it doesn't matter at all whether you're for or against AI, it doesn't. Because I'll show you how you're already paying for it in a way that's actually easy to understand and what I think is the biggest bet in human history. And
I mean, this came out 6 days ago, and we already have like 2 other players that announced that they're gonna reduce consumer products. So, I mean,
even if they get it all wrong, guess who will end up paying for it?
We're already
AI
there.
is real, and it is going to change every industry.
The idea that chips and ontology is what you want to short is batshit crazy.
Is this a bubble?
So to understand this whole thing, the best way
If you just think about NVIDIA's valuation, you think about everything that they physically have. If you can, just put a number on that, is this number equal, greater, or smaller than what the company is worth right now? If it's way bigger, I don't know, man. Draw your conclusions.
way is to build out the bubble in a way where it's actually simple. Because once you see the system, you'll begin to understand all the players that are involved that's out in the open and hidden, and why this is a black hole rather than a bubble. So let's break it down, starting with showing you the most important players that you need to know. First, the AI lab companies. You already know this, like OpenAI's ChatGPT, Anthropic's Claude, and Musk's xAI and Grok. Second, the chip makers that power AI, like NVIDIA and AMD. And third, data center providers like Oracle and CoreWeave that buy billions of dollars of these chips, store them in massive facilities, and then rent out that compute to the AI labs. And finally, these guys, which I'll reveal who a bit
So we have Micron, we have Samsung, the other one as well that produces the memory. So, even though they're not directly involved in those deals, they're part of the chain that makes it all work.
later on. But for now, remember those three to understand how the system is artificially propped up in a circular loop. And the loop begins with NVIDIA, the most valuable company in the world. And as you'll see, where all the loops lead back to. And recently, NVIDIA invests up to $100 billion in OpenAI. Sounds generous, right? Well, there's a catch. OpenAI
But also you can see that as giving a discount on something. So if you have a product that you sell that is at $100, if you put it at a $20 discount and a client buys it at $80, it's $80. But if you have it at $100 and you give your client $20 to buy it, you effectively give it, a $20 discount, but you can write in your books that you sold it for $100. And this is one of the things that make it so, so beautiful.
must use that money to buy millions of NVIDIA chips, so NVIDIA gives OpenAI money to buy NVIDIA products. So essentially, a discount disguises an investment. But that doesn't matter on paper or to the public. As soon as a deal is announced, NVIDIA's revenue increases, stock goes up, and now they have even more money to invest back into OpenAI. And now the loop is in motion. OpenAI then signs a $300 billion deal with Oracle to build massive data centers. And just like that, Oracle stock spikes 36% in one day.
Yeah, because Oracle, up until I think this year, it was a flat company. They thought that there's no more progress to be done there. It had reached its potential, but now it's reaching new heights.
Oh, but I almost forgot to mention, OpenAI only makes $12 billion in revenue. So how the hell are they signing $300 billion deals? Well, that's the beautiful thing about this circle. Oracle takes that $300 billion and uses it to buy tens of billions in NVIDIA chips for their data centers, and NVIDIA now has more
It's just, again, there hasn't been any exchange of money. It's just promises.
money to reinvest into an open AI. And just like that, the super loop restarts, but that's just the beginning. Because in order to keep this going, you have to remove all the perceived risk. So remember CoreWeave? Well, they're a data center provider that needs chips to rent out to an AI lab like OpenAI. And so to make this
That's the thing, OpenAI, NVIDIA, Microsoft, they don't want to put in the money to build those data centers because there is a risk. So they drop it to these other players like CoreWeave, and you have them that are kind of scared too. So NVIDIA, they promise to rent CoreWeave's, I I think it was up to 25% of their GPUs that they would have bought from NVIDIA to build the data center. This is just batshit crazy.
This happen, CoreWeave buys huge quantities of NVIDIA chips to install in their data centers, but with a trick. The deal NVIDIA generously gave to CoreWeave is that if they can't find enough customers, NVIDIA will buy any unused chips back risk.
I'm sorry. From my understanding, it's not they're gonna buy back the chips. They're gonna rent the computing as if they were a client. So so it guarantees the purchase of any unsold cloud computing capacity from CoreWeave through April 2032. If it was buying the chips, they would buy it once, right? Not until 2032. But no, I'm not throwing shade on Jen. This is a great video so far.
Free. But hold on, there's more. When CoreWeave filed for IPO recently, it turns out that NVIDIA owned 5% of the company. And NVIDIA agreed to anchor the IPO with a $250 million order to boost up investor confidence. So you see the pattern here. Revenue gets recorded, stock prices go up, and
So just just to say, the implication is even worse because the promise is for 7 years or 6 years to rent computing for them from them. That's kind of gross, guys.
rinse and repeat. So as I've laid that out, now it's very easy to blame these few companies. But the bubble didn't grow to this size on its own. The thing is, everyone is playing the same game, but in slightly different financial engineering strategies. Because NVIDIA isn't the only chip maker in town. And since AI labs like OpenAI require massive amounts of compute power, they're also buying billions in AMD chips. But in this
Oh my God. Amazon's data center with for Anthropic, they're betting on something else different. Uh, yeah, that's it. Just want a picture. Yeah, these are the pictures that I saw. So instead of using graphic cards, this is the bet that they're making. But still, I don't know, man. This is crazy. There's so much more that you could do with all of this money and fake valuations.
deal, it's extremely unusual. AMD gives OpenAI the right to buy 10% of AMD stock for 1 cent each. 1 cent, but the stipulation is that the stock only vests if AMD's stock price rises after the partnership, which of course it does. Because the very second that OpenAI publicly announces this massive AMD deal, AMD's stock spikes. And today, AMD's stock price is actually higher than NVIDIA's. And this is exactly where our fourth and not so secret player comes in, big tech. Oh yeah, you really thought that they wouldn't be here? Amazon has invested $8 billion in Anthropic, the AI lab that makes Claude, and in return, Anthropic has to use AWS cloud and chips. Google does the same thing, but $3 billion into Anthropic, and don't think OpenAI isn't taking similar deals. Microsoft has already pumped $13 billion into them to keep them locked into their infrastructure.
And the whole thing, the way it happened, how he was fired from OpenAI, and then the board said that I don't remember. They were all gonna resign, and now they were all part of Microsoft. Man, that feels like, I don't know, man, children shenanigans in a fucking theater play. The type of show that they put on, that they send to the public, these letters that are meant private instead of the companies. I
So
don't know.
what does this all create? It removes actual competition and replaces it with this multi-headed dependency where everybody's betting on everyone else in this small little circle. And within those bigger circles, smaller bubbles are growing by the day. Like when Nvidia invests in xAI, Elon Musk's AI lab. And as you've seen the pattern by now, xAI buys Nvidia chips. But what you may not have heard about is that xAI absorbed Twitter, or X, earlier this year, so xAI can pull data from X to train Grok, its AI model. Tesla then uses Grok in its cars and robots, and Musk wants Tesla shareholders to fund xAI, creating a self-contained ecosystem where money, data, and compute all loop across Musk's assets. And as I've mentioned throughout, the big bubble
Wasn't he a pal of Peter Thiel when he was in PayPal?
continues to grow at scale because the market rewards this sort of behavior. Because remember how I said that all loops lead back to Nvidia? Well, all those stock jumps mean that Nvidia is now worth $5 trillion or more than Japan.
Do you think that they have $5 trillion worth of graphics cards? But now they probably that they do, because instead of selling $500, $1,000 cards to consumers, they just sell those cards modified, tweaked for AI companies for $30,000, $50,000. That's a pretty good deal.
Japan and Germany's entire GDP. And if they want to keep that growing, they need to continue to convince the public that the demand will keep rising forever, which means that they have every incentive to manufacture demand, not just meet it. So hopefully you see the full picture now, and it's exactly why economists are sounding the alarm of round tripping the
Okay, so
to manufacture demand, not just meet it. So hopefully you see the full picture now, and it's exactly why economists are sounding
this here. Round tripping, also known as round trip transactions or lazy Susans, from the turntable of the same name, is defined by the Wall Street Journal as a form of barter that involves a company selling an unused asset to another company while at the same time agreeing to buy back the same or similar assets at about the same price. So it's all in the technicalities, right? If they were doing that, it would be illegal, right? Right? It becomes illegal in certain contexts. So it's how you go about it that makes it legal or not. And they have enough lawyers, they have enough people surrounding them that they wouldn't do something so stupid as to start an antitrust lawsuit against themselves, right? But it does feel like that because, in effect, the result is going to be most likely the same thing.
sounding the alarm of round tripping, the same trick that Enron used in the 2000s when Company A sells an asset to Company B with a secret agreement to buy back a similar asset later. And the result of that
You see, okay, so it's a secret agreement to buy it. There's an engagement to do it. They're going to do it no matter what. NVIDIA made a promise that if CoreWeave is unable to have all their GPUs computing rented, if then they would rent it for them. But that is the big distinction. As you know, he said before that they're not gonna buy the GPUs because that would make it the round tripping. That will make it illegal. That's why it's a contract to rent the computing until 2032. If CoreWeave is unable to do that. But if they're able to scale the properties of the LLMs with a $100 billion data center, there's a good chance that there's going to be some benefit. It's going to be better. It's going to do something that's worthwhile for other companies, most likely, but enough so that CoreWeave has all of its GPUs used, then NVIDIA wouldn't need to rent those GPUs. If that's it, that's going to work out. That would be the best ending, the winning ending for all those stupid asses.
That looks like companies making money when they're really not. So I think you don't need to be a genius to know why these are red
But the company valuation that raises just because of that, that does feel like they're making money without doing anything.
flags. But even with all that said, is this really a bubble though? Well, to answer that, I need to tell you about
Yeah, it's most likely a black hole because there's the potential that it might pay off. It could, but investors are getting nervous, that's for sure.
the hidden players quietly making all of this happen. Because it's during times like this, whenever futures look uncertain, like in this AI bubble, people always turn back to what feels real. Like gold, it's real money and it doesn't get printed away every time inflation spikes. But most people,
I mean, that's the same thing as piracy, right? If they're able to take out movies and shows on a service that you pay for, that means you don't own it. If you can't touch it, if you can't have it, if you can't print it, it's not yours. That's a good logic, but
people just let their
let's
gold
see.
sit there doing nothing when it could actually be earning them more gold. This is
Monetary.
exactly what today's sponsor, Monetary Metals, is doing. They're changing how gold ownership works by letting you earn a yield on the gold you own paid in physical gold.
The only thing I want to say here is that gold is not used as fiat anymore, so I'm not too sure about that.
Storage fees or watching your stack collect dust, you can earn up to 4% per year through their gold leasing.
Sorry, I'm very curious if you need to send them your gold. Are they just gonna trust you on it?
Marketplace. That means that your
What's the point of sending them
gold
gold?
keeps growing in ounces and the price of gold could rise on top of that. Thousands of investors are already earning a monthly yield in physical gold and silver through Monetary Metals, so do not just hold gold, put it to work. Go to monetary-metals.com/gen to learn more.
Would you be comfortable sending your gold elsewhere if it was gonna make you more gold?
And start earning gold on your gold. So with that said, who are these hidden players inflating this AI bubble?
The hidden players. Is it
Because
gonna
while
be
everyone's been distracted by these headlines and stock
the
prices,
memory companies?
Wall Street has been quietly buying up
Blackstone?
the actual infrastructure that is needed for all this to function, from land, data centers, and power. And along with big
Land, yeah.
tech, they're making the biggest bet in human history. And as you'll see, they're willing to pay any premium to make that happen. And the thing is, we've only seen the beginning. By 2030, $7 trillion is said to be spent on data center infrastructure. Since 2022, private equity firms have acquired over 450 data center companies. That's 80 to 90% of all mergers in the sector. And in 2024 alone, they announced $115 billion in deals, nearly double the prior 2 years combined. And what private equity is doing is that they're buying these buildings to lease them to big tech, and it's the perfect arrangement. Private equity builds a shell to collect rent payments, and big tech invests their money into faster and better AI tech while keeping the liability off their balance sheets. But you might be thinking, why is no one talking about this? Well, simple. What do you think gets more clicks? ChatGPT passing the bar exam?
This here is meaningless. If I had the bar exams, the bar exam, and I had like all the books and enough time to be equivalent to the computing, I'm pretty sure I could copy and paste my way to passing the bar exam.
Or a company most people have never heard of, like Blackstone, acquiring multi-billion-dollar
I mean, if you haven't started hearing about them, you need to watch a couple more videos.
data centers.
Blackstone becoming an AI player.
Okay, and now you might be thinking, well, so what? Well, because this is how the risks multiply. First, if this AI boom ends up cooling off and hyperscalers need less space, private equity is about to be stuck with empty warehouses full of unused or outdated servers. And if you've seen any of my private equity videos, these deals are usually funded with massive debt in a leveraged buyout. So now you can deduce that if they can't pay it back, these losses ripple through these banks and credit markets. But the second and bigger reason why you should care is because you're already paying for it. Because the infrastructure that private equity is buying isn't being built in Silicon Valley, it's happening in your neighborhood. Private equity-backed developers are buying up farmland and industrial parks in suburbs across America to build these massive data center campuses. So places that used to be quiet, rural.
And that's the thing, these poor people that did not ask to have these data centers being built close to them, they're gonna be the ones that have to pay for the rise of the electricity around there. They're gonna be the ones that most likely are gonna have contaminated water, and I don't know how many years it's gonna take to fuck up all the water over there.
Counties are turning into server farms so big they make Walmart look small. But I guess the good news is that people are fighting back.
And the noise is so bad.
In Virginia, where a lot of these data centers are, a project with 84 data centers where one data server is the size of 2 Walmarts actually ended up being stalled, along with $46 billion in other developments. But this community backlash isn't just about land. And what all this investment from private equity fails to mention is that it's actually about power. In a perfect example,
Yo, they started acquiring nuclear plants to power those data center. That is the most James Bond villain type shit, dystopian, fucking discount dystopian, because we can't, because of the greed, we can't even have a proper dystopia. We have this shitty ass dystopia, this fucking Walmart discount dystopia. This is a shame.
is OpenAI's $500 billion Stargate project that will require 10 gigawatts, so power enough for 26 million homes or the entire state of Texas where I live in. And that's just one project. With the amount of investment into US data centers that are being built, it's estimated that combined, it will now draw as much power as 10 to 15 major cities, not to mention.
And all that just to generate fucking brain rot a little better. Just to have like a little better answers. There's such a thing as the law of diminishing returns.
In the millions of gallons of water a day. And the thing is, the US grid can't handle this. One nuclear plant is around 1 gigawatt of energy, and we built one in the US in the last 30 years. Renewable energy is currently limited by tariffs, and data centers take around 2 to 3 years to build, while power plants take 5 to 10. So what are these companies doing? Well, you really think that with all that money from big tech and private equity, they haven't found workarounds? The solution has been installing gas turbines directly at these data centers, and they're strategically choosing states like Tennessee that lets them fast track environmental review, all the while going against their own green pledges that they made to show how much they care about the environment. And that's exactly why nearly 1 in 5 US data centers are now concentrated in communities already dealing with a bunch of pollution. So with all that said, I think that you and I can at least cut some slack if they're at least paying for the increased power usage. But lobbying is also in there. They're blocking laws that would make tech companies pay for the grid upgrades that they cause. So instead, regulation allows utility companies to spread the cost across everyone, meaning you could soon see an extra $10 to $20 on your monthly bill. And even if that sounds like peanuts, if 50% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, every dollar
Man, because it's drastic. The price hikes, they're drastic. And they shouldn't be put on people, on citizens. That's absurd.
is going to count. Now look, most of you watching are Americans who care about a strong economy. So maybe I'm just being a devil's advocate here, but could this all be forgiven if private equity-backed data centers create tons of jobs, right? Well, during construction, it does. A new data center can employ over 1,000 workers for construction, but once it's built, a typical data center actually only employs around 50 full-time workers. That's it. That's if the data center even ends up being used. Because the thing is, there are already signs that we're building far more than the market will ever need. Because remember CoreWeave, their entire business model depends on renting out chips to AI labs from their private equity financed data centers. But the thing is, chip rental prices are crashing. NVIDIA B200 chips went from $3.20 per hour per chip to now $2.80 per hour, which is below break even for many of these sort of operators. So that's sort of a red flag of oversupply, but it introduces the risk. Let's say if the demand that we're predicting never catches up, entire data centers could become stranded assets. And it's happened before, just like the 19th century railroad lines that lead to nowhere. And so if data centers become underutilized, the lenders who finance all this are gonna take some massive losses. And with all these things connected,
That's why investors are getting cold feet already. That plus the fact that if you take into account that DeepSeek was able to have very good performance on hardware that is supposed to be older and worse than the latest and greatest, then you understand that the latest and greatest, it would be out of date after a couple of years. And who wants to have a data center, $100 billion data center, be outdated in a couple of years? That is pretty freaky.
huge parts of the AI supply chains could become financially distressed. So you might be thinking that everything that I'm saying so far, doesn't that point to a bubble? From the circular funding to private equity building infrastructure that no one might end up using, not to mention the cost that communities pay while getting their jobs potentially replaced. But here's the thing. When the bet is as big as potentially replacing human labor, it's not going to be like other bubbles where if it pops, the market resets and life goes on. This bet is different. And so obviously I can't predict the future, but to show you why, let me walk you through the 3 scenarios of what will happen next to understand why this is a black hole. So since it's been a little bit too doomer, for your sake, let's start with the best case scenario. The hype actually catches up to reality and AI grows into its insane valuations and actually delivers on what the tech bros promise. And it's not that far-fetched. Think of like the dot-com bubble. Yes, a ton of companies went bankrupt and markets crashed, but from it came Amazon, Google, or even YouTube that you're using right now. And the same could happen here, where from the fallout, we get real technological breakthroughs and AI really does.
That is the humanoid robot that is controlled remotely by a person, right? What is this?
Does become a force multiplier that democratizes opportunity instead of deepening inequality.
These are going to be used for weapons. 100%.
Because what if the early research stays true, where AI tools have been found to help lower skilled workers earn more, work faster, and compete better? And although without a doubt some jobs will be replaced, but also millions of people end up upgrading their careers. So that's the best case scenario, but you and I both know that every advancement comes with a price. And the real question is, what cost? Which brings us to the worst case scenario, the singularity. Not the sci-fi version where we upload our brains and transcend biology. I mean the real world version where government, big tech, and capital merge into one singular system of totalitarian control, and where this guy is calling all the shots.
You would prefer the human race to endure, right?
My boy. My boy. Why you look so scary, man?
You're hesitating.
Yeah, well,
yes?
I don't know. I would.
This is a long hesitation. This is a long hesitation.
There's so many questions implicit in
Should
this.
the human race survive?
Yeah, it sounds insane, but is it that far-fetched when it's already happened before? After what happened in 2001, the US quietly rolled out total information awareness, where it justified wiretapping, mass data collection, government agencies spying on citizens, all because of fear. So when the playbook is all the same, is it crazy that in the worst case scenario that this happens in the name of security? Again, I don't know, but hopefully we don't end up in this dystopian nightmare. So what is the most likely scenario? Because some creators say it's a bubble, others say it's not, or maybe a combination of both, but I really do think that they're all looking at it wrong. Because everything I've described so far isn't a bubble, it's more of a black hole. And there are three primary reasons why. The first is there's no exit. Big tech and Wall Street and the world at large are in an arms race to meet AI expectations. But
when they're gonna notice, when they're gonna understand that this is not gonna lead to where they want to go, people are gonna cut their losses. The same thing with the meta world. Everybody, how much money was spent into the VR worlds, and that shit is not used at all. So they're gonna cut their losses and try a different approach or something else completely.
AI infrastructure isn't capital that you can just pull back from. It's capital that gets sucked in the more you feed it. Every new chip requires more power, more servers, more cooling, more debt. And once the build out starts, the only direction is forward, even if demand never
Well, with the video we saw yesterday, you know, NVIDIA was able to implement new technologies or new things onto older GPUs that they retrofitted some features. So, I mean, instead of just trying to go with raw power, we should just take a break, see what we have, and optimize the things that we have. Make the things that we have better, and instead of trying to make new shit that doesn't work.
materializes. Not to mention, because so much of this is financed with private credit at double-digit interest rates, these companies can't slow down. They have to expand, not because demand is real, but because the debt also requires it. So this isn't like a normal bubble where you're buying assets hoping to flip them later. In this case, once a data center is built, who the hell are you going to sell a giant server farm to? Which leads to the second point.
Other companies, there's a market, man. That is why they are confident turning their business models being business to business companies.
That there's no truth. These assets stay on the books at full value because they barely trade. And there's no price discovery until a bankruptcy forces a fire sale. So on paper, everything can look healthy, even if the real value is collapsing underneath. And because most of this sits inside private equity, private credit, and corporate balance sheets, the public might not ever end up seeing what
Most people don't give a shit about that. It's ridiculous to imagine most people would be interested in that. What you see the was it in that video? The other boy's grandma. They're scared of AI because of what is going to break. We don't care about the valuation and the the books of the companies. But if you have a pension fund and they invest that in those companies and that crashes, that's going to be relevant. People are going to be interested in that, seeing their future disappear. That's important.
What's actually happening. Just like Enron was able to get away with it, clever accounting lets you depreciate slowly over 20 years, when in reality, a drop in utilization can wipe out the value overnight. So investors, regulators, and the public all operate under an illusion, not because anyone's hiding it, but because the system doesn't require the truth. Which leads me directly to the third and most important reason why this is a black hole. Because if it breaks, there will be no alarms. Traditional bubbles usually burst when sentiment flips and then everybody panics at once. But I don't see AI collapsing that way.
Why not? If people understand that this is not the way to go, it's just not going to go forward. What the fuck happened with the quantum computers? You know, it's not in the forefront of the news.
As long as big tech keeps announcing breakthroughs and trillion-dollar deals, confidence is going to stay artificially high, because that bet to replace human labor is a bet that we've never even seen before. And not to mention, with stock prices continuing to hit record highs, no one's pulling the plug anytime soon. But even if confidence really does slip to record lows, I don't think it will even be a sudden pop. It will be more so a slow bleed where server farm construction pauses, AI startups quietly start shutting down, and utilization starts dropping. And again, because private credit.
But that's not quiet. It's not going to be quiet. You're just going to see a whole bunch of company close and shut down. I mean, it's going to make the news. We see fucking layoffs all the time, and that makes the news. If hundreds of companies start closing one after the other, obviously we're going to notice.
Credit is financing a lot of this, the public might not really notice for months. So to put it simply, this won't be like a Lehman Brothers moment like in 2008. It'll be more so like 1,000 micro failures all happening slowly behind closed doors. And this is exactly what Michael Berry started warning about in this AI black hole. Turns out Google's actually quietly extended the useful life of its servers and network gear from 4 years to 6 years. And that alone cut its 2023 depreciation cost by about $3.4 billion and magically boosted reported profits by nearly $3 billion without doing anything. They're not alone. Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, they've all done the same. And in total, big tech has added almost $10 billion to profits over 2 years just by declaring that their hardware now lasts 6 years instead of 4. And it's this red flag on paper that Burry is pointing out, is that if everybody is treating AI servers and chips as if they'll generate value for 6 years, there's going to be some problems when the hardware might actually become obsolete in 2 to 3 years. So that's the bottomless black hole, while also having every ingredient of a bubble. A world-changing story, concentrated debt, steady financing, and exposure spread across banks and private credit. But instead of popping, the capital just gets swallowed, disappearing into depreciation, energy bills, and endless debt payments. And so obviously no one knows what's actually going to happen, but what's clear is that the pace of change and investment into AI isn't slowing down, it's accelerating. Just as I was finishing this video, the White House signed an executive order called the Genesis Mission, which is essentially a federally funded push to win the race for AGI, or artificial general intelligence, and it's literally like the Manhattan Project of artificial intelligence. So the details are still coming out, but what this means is that the AI bubble or black hole isn't just powered by big tech and Wall Street anymore.
Nah, I don't know, man. How are they gonna do it? Just throw more computers at it? More graphics cards? Did they finally fix quantum computers? Are they gonna use biochips? I don't know if you guys have seen that. Jesus. Bio CPU. Biological computer processor made from living matter. Biological computers. Biological computers uses biologically derived molecules such as DNA and or proteins to perform digital or real computations. This is scary as fuck, man. I don't know if they're gonna Frankenstein a whole bunch of different technologies and have them transform into AGI, but
more. It's now backed by the full weight of the US government as every country competes in this era's Cold War arms race. And again, it's this big bet that the world is competing on that makes it foolish to call this an AI bubble instead of what it is, a black hole. So whether you're for AI or against it, here's what you can do. Learn how power moves and don't be the guy in the comment refusing to embrace change. Because here's the thing, even if you can't change the system, the next best move is to learn to understand it. Because once you do, you can use that knowledge to protect yourself or even profit like Michael Berry did in 2008 when everybody else chose ignorance instead. Because in a world of money and power fueled by AI, ignorance is only going to be the most dangerous position of them all. And so if you're watching this channel, you're in the right place. I'll be diving even deeper into this next week in my free newsletter in the video description. But if you haven't seen my last video on AI's impact on the job market, go and watch our video on it. And don't forget to like and subscribe to learn how money and power works.
That was a pretty cool video. I don't think I'm 100% with him on everything that he said, but it was a very good video.